Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast, we'll be talking football.
Because blitzing is not a defensive scheme, Jay.
We'll be giving our picks.
I don't know, what's a Monty special? Is that like when you take all your clothes off?
Oh, boy. And we'll give some love to the non-playoff teams.
I'm not sure if he had a canoe in his pocket or if he was just happy to see to it.
Oh, boy. That Neil is a real troublemaker. It's Wildcard Weekend. Here we go.
This guy is drunk.
Who, you or
No,
Pod?
Jay.
That's how we start! Yeah, baby!
32 superfans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This
No question about it.
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Happy birthday! Because I'm sure it's somebody's birthday today, and it's a new year. So it's a happy birthday to a new year. Hey everybody, PodVader here, Next Fan Up podcast. We are in the wild card playoffs. I unfortunately have to break down my team's upcoming game in the wild card playoffs. Not a fun task for me, but I mean, James, our Eagle superfan, is here. He's used to doing this, so I can now feel your pain, James.
What pain? I'm just happy to be here. Whatever happens. I mean, You guys are the perennial 20-year in the playoffs, never missing it, supposed to win the Super Bowl. You're the only one feeling angst. I'm glad to be invited to the party.
Yeah, that's true. And Neil, our Washington Redskins superfan, when's the last time you've been in the playoffs? It's been a while.
RG3's rookie season? Remember that being in 2000
Was it in the 19s? Oh, that's great.
It wasn't in the 19 anything. It was like 7 years ago, maybe.
Still a long time ago.
Yeah, still a long time ago. Still too long. But we'll be back one day. Give it another 10 years, we'll be back.
I would like to take a quick moment to say hello to Sutton Codfield in the UK. They are the number one place listening to our podcast.
Coalfield.
Oh, did I say Codfield? Well, I meant Coldfield. Listen, I mispronounce all those UK places.
That's okay. It's in England. It's fine.
Wow.
Also, Los Alamos, New Mexico. That is our second most listened to place. Hello to your wonderful towns, and continue to listen to the show and spread the word to maybe some towns around you. I don't know how much is around Los Alamos. How much is around Sutton Coldfield there?
I have no idea.
That's too bad. It's clearly too far away for Neil in Scotland.
I wonder what they have in common, those two places.
That's a good question, too.
Oh, gosh.
I'm not even going to hazard a guess. Anyway, thanks for listening to this podcast. Thanks to Gary and Paul, who sent us an email, nextfanup@gmail.com. They reached the end of our Week 17 preview. So thanks for sending us a note, letting us know you got to the end of that 2.5-hour show. By the way, you can still listen to that show. It's not dated at all. It's more of an off-season outlook than a Week 17 preview. I sort of mistitled it. I have changed the title of that show. Much like George Lucas changed the name of Revenge of the Jedi to Return of the Jedi.
I thought it was originally going to be called The Gruesome Death of Chewie.
No.
Let's not go down this road again.
Did not happen.
I think Gary and Paul, they sound like a lovely couple living in Sutton Coalfield. Maybe a nice house, a dog, a couple of kids, running about the garden, playing football.
Paul is from New Zealand, and he always sends us his emails with his wife's name on it too. So Paul and Gary are not together whatsoever. New Zealand, quite a distance away from Sutton Coldfield there.
Thankfully, also quite a distance from the terrible fires that are happening in Australia right now, which is terrible.
Yes. New Zealand is on an island that's not anywhere near Australia. Well, I guess it's near. It's closer to Australia than we are.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. Congratulations to Catherine Magruder, Redskin fan forever. She won our regular season Pigskin Pick'em with 173 total correct choices on the year. So congrats to you. You guys can join our playoff pick'em group on picks.cbssports.com. Next Fan Up, oddly enough, is the name of our group. There are links on our Twitter and Facebook pages, facebook.com/NFU podcast, at NFU podcast on Twitter. And there's a link in the show notes to the podcast you are currently listening to right now. So go and join us. The winner of our playoff pick'em group will have an opportunity to join us on this particular show sometime in the offseason to talk about whatever NFL topic you would like. But it has to be an NFL topic. We're not talking about the death of Chewie, which is not a spoiler alert. Or maybe it is now. I'm sorry to all you Star Wars people. If you haven't seen the movie yet, you're not a real Star Wars fan anyway.
Yeah, I'm actually composing an email to J.J. Abrams as we speak here.
Oh, gosh.
Bit of a plot twist.
Are we going to talk about league news first or the games first?
No, we are going to talk about the games first. If you would like to talk about, if you're only here for the league stuff, there is a marker towards the end of the show where we are talking about coaches and teams and all that good stuff.
May I slip in just one more Star Wars question? I don't want to ruffle you guys' feathers any more than I did before the show. One more question. You know the bit, James, where now what's he called? Is it Poe? Is that what he's called? The guy?
Yeah.
Poe Dameron. And he meets this girl with the face mask thing on, her helmet on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's that all about?
They have a history together. They used to date. They used to run Spice, which was illegal. And,
well, we're not 100% sure they had a relationship like that before.
They did. Come on.
It was inferred, but
yeah.
No, they had a relationship. That's why she's pissed off with him. He was
That's going to be the next...
trying to get back with her, and she said no.
There's a film in that one, isn't there?
Well, the real question is, what does she look like under that helmet, right? You know, I guarantee she doesn't look like Felicity or whatever her. What was her first show? I forget.
Whatever.
That's the point. Let's get back to football. Thank you. 6 playoff teams: the Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs, New England Patriots from the AFC, and the 49ers, Green Bay Packers, and New Orleans Saints from the NFC won at least 12 regular season games. That is tied for the most such teams in a single postseason in NFL history. That's along with 2011 and 2003, I believe, were the other 2 years that also featured 6 playoff teams with 12-plus wins. Oh, parity, ladies and gentlemen, parity. This is what it brings you.
It always goes back to that same question you always have, Jay, which is about how strong is the league this year?
Yeah, I think the league is probably at its weakest point ever. I mean, when you're all good, you all suck. And quite honestly, I don't think the Baltimore Ravens are the greatest 14-2 team that we've ever seen. They're good. There's no doubt about it. But the Patriots, this is not one of the Patriots' best teams at 12-4, and yet they have a 12-4 record and are playing on Wildcard Weekend.
Can I ask the question?
It helps when your first 8 opponents combine for 5 wins.
Yeah. Can I ask the question that James is longing to ask, which is, now you're in the Wildcard Weekend, Jay, how dirty do you feel, and how many showers have you had to try and clean that dirt off you?
Yeah, it's been... I haven't had enough showers yet to get that dirt off me. That's the worst part.
Yeah. Whatever, Jay, no one feels your pain because it doesn't exist.
I know. The Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans will kick things off for us on Saturday at 4:35 p.m. By the way, guys, we have 2 4:00 games this week. Right. That's amazing. 50% of the games are at 4:00. We don't normally get 4:00 games. That's why I'm so impressed. No, you're not buying it? Okay. Wasn't that funny? They both finished the season at 10-6. They play in a dome, so I don't need to give you a weather report. The spread on this game is 2.5 points favoring the Houston Texans. The Bills finished in our power rankings at 8. The Texans finished in our power rankings at 9. We'll talk about where we had them ranked in week 1 a little bit later on. But first, why don't I throw it to Rob and James, who will break down this football game for us.
All right, Pod, thanks for that great introduction. I am your Houston Texans superfan, James, once again sneaking into the playoffs. This year, I am joined by our Buffalo superfan, Rob. Rob, how are you today?
I feel good. I'm sitting here. We're going to talk about a Saturday night football game in the first weekend of Wildcard playoffs. So I feel like I'm walking right into your home, both literally and figuratively.
Well, that's right. So Saturday afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern, down at NRG Stadium in Houston. As I said, once again, the Houston Texans are in there, led by Bill O'Brien, the new Marvin Lewis, now that Marvin Lewis is out of the league. So how about we fire off with that? The Texans rested their starters in Week 17, much to my chagrin. Not that it would have mattered for anything. But so coming out of a 1 week off, knowing just how well it works for our division rivals, I'm expecting a quick offensive start for you guys, Rob. What comes to mind for your offensive game plan this Saturday?
I mean, really, it all comes down to what Josh Allen we're going to see at the end of the day, right? It's his first playoff game, so it's a little bit of an unknown. As it's kind of been with a lot, we've had this, the first time he's really had important games. So, in the New England game, he started out at, a little bit slow and then kind of came on towards the end. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, kind of the same deal to varying degrees. So I do think you're going to see something similar. I think the Bills are going to try to get the running game going, maybe a little bit out on the edges with Singletary. I do think that Houston's a team that Josh Allen's going to be able to pass against a little bit. I know that, if you are not familiar with Josh Allen and you just watched the Baltimore game, the New England game, and the Pittsburgh game, those kind of national TV games, you see a quarterback who's, getting blitzed all the time and having to run around and play a little hero ball. But I do think Houston can do some of those same things, but I think the secondary is just not quite as good as Baltimore or not quite as good as New England. So I think, with John Brown and with Cole Beasley being good separators, I think they're going to be able to do a little bit in the passing game, but I think they're going to focus a little bit more on the running game, which is what they've kind of done probably the past 4 or 5 weeks. Josh Allen, he's not going to have like 40 throws a game. If he does, the Bills are probably in a little bit of trouble. I do think the Bills could score a little bit, but it's concerning when you see that J.J. Watt's coming back into the game. I know it's from a pec injury. Those are tough to come back from, and he's probably not going to have really all his legs under him, but man, he's, when healthy, even when not healthy, he's one of the best players in the league. So that scares me. The Bills played the Texans last year and had tons of trouble with him. Granted, they have a better offensive line now, but, it's super concerning when you have J.J. Watt sitting on the defense you're playing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the game last year. That was a very, very unwatchable game. Really the only thing that bailed the Texans out was the entrance of Nathan Peterman. So another year of seasoning under Josh Allen. I can see him being more than just competent. But yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for Josh Allen this season and for his career. Helping your argument a little bit as far as our defensive secondary goes, Bradley Roby, Jonathan Joseph, and one of our safeties have already popped up on the injury report. I'm hoping they all play, but to have have like Jonathan Joseph or Bradley Roby at less than 100% is definitely not doing ourselves any favors, especially since the secondary has already been kind of a point of weakness for us this year. I'm also glad you brought up J.J. Watt. He was going to be my X factor, and I know everybody's going to roll their eyes, man, J.J. Watt an X factor, but probably not for the reason you think. When J.J. Watt is in the game, he basically gets to dictate what he wants to do on defense. And I don't mean against the offensive players. I mean, like, if he wants to line up on the right side, he's going to line up on the right side. If he wants to line up over center or on the left side, that's what he gets to do. So the defense, which has played the better part of the season without him, has actually formed a pretty good dynamic on that front seven. And now you're inserting a guy who is definitely not at 100% and is hopefully just, above average or, hopefully close to what he could possibly be. And it's going to disrupt that front seven. So hopefully he comes back, he's good, and everything works out well. But I can definitely see a scenario where J.J. Watt is scrambling around that front seven, trying to figure out a place that works while playing with that hurt pec, and it's just throwing